Welcome, dear listeners. You are listening to the DigiCompetence podcast with Anne Cork and Philip Ramin.
Yes, and today we're speaking to Soledad Gonzalez. Soledad is an e-commerce analyst and project manager for E-barometern at PostNord Sweden. She grew up in a little village in Argentina and is now responsible for following the e-commerce market in the Nordic countries, and is responsible for the E-barometer in these countries, which reveals a lot about the markets and consumer behavior and can be a wonderful source of learning what to learn. Soledad describes herself as being very curious. She's the eldest of 5 siblings and also the eldest of around 54 cousins. She's lived in 5 countries and she speaks 5 languages. She's swum with giant turtles and she loves hiking. On one of her latest hiking trips, she walked 70 kilometers on a weekend. So welcome to our podcast, dear Soledad. Thanks for stopping the walk to be with us today.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
Swimming with turtles must be absolutely wonderful. They're very clumsy.
It was fantastic. It was actually, it was amazing. It was in Peru. We were in Peru a couple of years ago, and it was really an amazing experience, I'd say.
And they're very, very graceful in water, the turtles. When do you feel graceful, like swimming in water gracefully in the work that you do?
Well, I really love my job. I think it's a good combination of many things that I'm interested in. I've always been, as you said, very curious. So the fact that I'm looking every day into what's going on in the market, what happens. I'm also very interested in people and understanding behavior. So that is also part of my job, understanding how consumers behave, how trends and different things that happen in the world affect how we consume. So from many aspects, my job is very interesting. I'm also very interested in technology and innovation and how these can contribute to our lives. And that is also part of my work, like following up what's going on when it comes to new trends and stuff like that. So it's very exciting.
Very exciting work, Soledad, but you come from a very small town in Argentina, I said at the beginning. So It's not something that you would expect somebody to end up doing. How did you end up being in this position?
Well, it's a kind of long story, but if I can make it short, I've always been very curious about languages. When I lived in Argentina, since I was very young, I studied English, and then I was an English teacher for many, many years. And I also taught Spanish to foreigners. And the fact that I met people from all over from other countries that came to my country made it. I was really, really curious about knowing like what their lives looked like, what it was outside Argentina, and I come from a very humble background, so my parents didn't have money to pay for journeys or abroad or things like that. So I had never been abroad, even though I had studied languages. So when I grew up, I got my job and everything, I decided that I would go on a journey to Italy to learn Italian. And I did. I worked a lot because it was a very expensive journey. Worked a lot and saved a lot of money. And I went to Italy. And on the very first week of this journey that I went to learn the language, I met a Swedish guy. So we ended up, we fell in love. That's the way I came to Sweden in the end. But yes. My curiosity, I think, and always trying to learn new things was what, maybe gave me the opportunity or to go abroad and see the world. Mm-hmm. Yes. Wonderful. And then after that, I moved. We lived in several countries actually before we moved to Sweden. I lived in the UK for a while. And then we lived in Spain. And when we got our first child, we thought that it would be better to live close to at least one part of the family. So we moved to Sweden then, about 10 years ago.
So yes. From a digitalization angle standpoint, all the countries you have experienced, what was the one which is the most digital one, actually, based on your experience?
At my work or in life? Or...
No, in general. What is your experience here?
Okay, when it comes to digitalization, it's very, it's so exciting that I come from a background, as I say, very humble and stuff, that I never had actually when I was growing up, access to, I didn't have a computer, for instance, at home. I didn't have access to technology, but I was so eager to learn. I remember I would spend hours in the library at school because it was the only place that I had access to a computer and later on to internet. So for me, the gap of like living this very little town, as I said, and then going to like Europe and getting the chance to study e-commerce, for instance, it was just like a boom. Like, and now I'm in contact with people in my job that work particularly with digital products. So I get a lot of input on things that are going on, like AR, using AI and things like that. So I would say that there's many different things that are interesting. What I think is very exciting, at least when it comes to e-commerce, is the amount of data that we have, and about people, about whatever the person does over the day or during the day. And I think that it's kind of overwhelming that we have so much data. And what I think we should start thinking about is, what do we do with this all data? How do we actually learn, or come to conclusions, and how we can improve our lives with help of data? So I think it's really exciting. Every time I meet some of my colleagues, for instance, and they tell me how they're working on their projects with digitalized products, I also get very inspired when I go to events. In my role in the company, usually I always go to events like retail events and things like that. Last week, for instance, I was in an event with that Google, Klarna, many tech companies, Microsoft. And I get really inspired and really positive, actually, to thinking like, yeah, there's so many opportunities with digitalization that we can solve so many problems in the future.
I think this is exactly the attitude we need. And what you have described basically is, at the end, it's not so much about the conditions around us, maybe how much great infrastructure we have, but also about what are we doing with it? So how can we utilize it? And it's not always about working towards perfectionism, but getting the things done. And I think in many cases, talking about big companies, I think we have a lot of excuses why we are not doing it. Like, I would like to do it, but I need a better computer, I need a better software, and so on and so forth. So do you think that this whole journey, also your personal journey, is really about, basically just do it, like, getting it done and getting the experience and so on and so forth?
Definitely. I definitely think that it has to do with just do it, but also that learn. Like, I think that we need to have an attitude of like, not make a mistake. Like, make a mistake is a learning. Right. That's the way I see it. Because I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and I sometimes also make mistakes when I'm working with my colleagues and things like that. But it's just, there's just, I think, that we should be like humble. Okay, this didn't go the way we expected, but what have we learned? And whenever you ask that question, what have we learned? What have I learned in this situation? Then you can start thinking differently next time. So what I think is that we need to actually, it's about attitude, and yes, and having even a positive way of seeing mistakes, because that is how we learn. That's the way I see it. Yes.
Do you see different attitudes to learning from failure from the countries that you've been in? Are they different? Does Sweden learn more from mistakes than another country, or would you say everyone's the same?
There's now that you say it, it's very exciting, because I think definitely that there's a culture of learning. In different countries have different cultures of learning. I'm very fortunate because I have had the opportunity to actually study in different countries. I both studied in Argentina. I studied in Brazil during a period of my life. We went on exchange studies, and I studied in Sweden as well. So I've been able to compare how different educational systems work. And I would say like this, maybe this is wrong, but this is my experience. Usually the way we learn, it's very cultural. Like, for instance, in Argentina or in most South American countries, we still have very authoritarian way of seeing to education. I think this is changing, but historically, it's been authoritarian in the sense that there's the teacher up there, or the professor that knows everything, and the other ones just need to listen to this person that is the authority. You know what I mean? Whereas in cultures like, I would say Scandinavia or like Sweden, the knowledge is more like everybody contributes to build something together. And it's so clear, because this is even clear from nursery school, like from kindergarten. When my children go to school, I see the way they learn, you know. And I could also see it in when I did I have 2 degrees in Sweden. When I did my degrees, the way the system works. Generally, you are part of a group in which you're encouraged to discuss. When I was at university, we had a lot of seminars where the point of the seminar was actually discussion. Like, we would come to a solution together, and I think that also in a way reflects or shows the way companies work in Sweden. Most companies in Sweden are very in the way they operate. They're very inclusive. They're like the manager or the boss is not like up there. It's always part of the team, and they would always ask you, what do you think about this? What do you think? What do you think? And like critiques and things like that are welcome. I could say to my manager, I think that maybe we could do differently here. Oh, really? Whereas if I talk about my experience in like other countries like Argentina or other South American countries, it would be more like, because of respect, you would never criticize, or you would never come with criticism to your boss. Do you know what I mean? It's not very welcome. Sure. It would be like a cultural problem. I mean, yes. So there's definitely, I would say, differences in learning and teaching, and also that I would say reflects the way later on the working environment works. What do you think? Do you see any difference?
Oh, there are big differences. I mean, we in Germany are, I guess, somewhere in between. A lot of stuff is changing here as well. So things are also becoming more democratic, more open, more transparent, less hierarchies. But it depends a little bit on the industry and the area. But of course, when I travel to Scandinavia, I do a lot of business in Scandinavia. I can absolutely confirm what you're saying. And talking about Asia, it becomes a completely different story, because here it's even more important to be on a specific hierarchical level to make decisions. So yes, I think we are always part of our context, and we need to do the best out of our context. So I can absolutely confirm what you're saying. One practical question, Soledad: was there anything remarkable what you have learned in your job in the last weeks or months, maybe also from a failure where I would say, that was very beneficial? Can you remember one specific example?
From my job. The thing is that I'm relatively new in this company, and I've been working with this report. This is the 3rd quarter that I'm working with the report, and I've learned so much because, as I said, we are following the market, not only the consumers, but also the companies. And I got in contact with a lot of large retailers and companies in Sweden, and it's amazing. But I think that, in general, I would say like this: I'm more of a person that in Swedish we say takes place. That means in Swedish means that you take generally initiatives, and you are not afraid of making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I was new in my role, I've always tried to be part of forums where things are discussed, and I just said what I thought, And what I saw is that it's very positive sometimes, because people say, "Oh, really? Oh, that's good what you said." You know what I mean? So, and until this moment, I haven't had like negative feedback.
That's good.
Things that have
learning
been
as well.
yes, things that have been negative in a way, but I've got positive feedback in general from the people I work with. But what's being really challenging for me, it's understanding such a huge company, because this company is very, very big. It's the largest logistics company in the Nordics, and it has about 28,000 employees. It's a huge company, and we have a lot of different products. And within e-commerce, there's different kinds of deliveries. How you deliver a product to a service point, to a locker, to home to people and stuff like that. Understanding all the apparatus, how this works, is really complex. And I think that when you start working in a large company, you get a lot of respect for the work the company does, because you understand the complexity behind. And usually it is also challenging to understand how the connections between people, like I need to start creating a relationship with my colleagues to understand what they do, and you know what I mean, and to also understand who I can go to with certain questions. So that's been a bit challenging to understand the whole apparatus, the whole system, but I think it's worked fine. Most of my colleagues are really willing to help and would answer to my questions and things like that. But as I said again, particularly when you work that's my experience, particularly when you work in a large company, it's a matter of going out there and do the job, and like ask people, reach out. In my case, that's what I do. I reach out to people. Hey, how about this? How do you work with this? How do you solve that? Yes, it's a matter of taking the chances you have to talk to people to learn stuff.
Soledad, you've spoken a lot about this big company. We're talking about PostNord Sweden, which could be compared to DHL in Germany, couldn't it? And
yes.
A company that was founded as it belongs to the PostNord group, were founded in 1636, just so that the listeners know. Even companies that are that old are open to a lot of democratic thought from their employees. But let's go on to your e-commerce report that you do, the eBarometern.
Yes.
What would you say are the most exciting findings?
Well, actually, there's been so much going on the last years. The largest findings the last 2 years is that the pandemic has had huge effect on e-commerce in general, and certain categories in particular, product categories, but in general, it's grown a lot. In 2020, we ended up with a 40% growth for the whole of e-commerce in Sweden, and last year, 2021, it was less, but still 20% on top of that. So it's a huge growth, and that it's of course a lot of possibilities for companies to grow, but it also brings along a lot of challenges, in the sense that you need to create a very huge system in the logistics, for instance, to send all the packages, and to be able to, so that this works. So yes, it's been very exciting actually to follow up the development of e-commerce the last year.
What has changed on the customer side? I mean, of course, we see an increase when it comes to this online shopping stuff, but overall spoken, has the customer changed? Is there a different expectation today? And how do you find that out? Do you have some specific analytical measures in order to do that?
Yes, definitely. We have definitely seen a new customer behavior. First, I can say how the report works. Generally, there's a lot of reports out there that are only based on consumer, surveys. You do surveys and then you get to the numbers. In our case, our report is well known in the sector in Sweden and all around Sweden and in other countries as well, because it's a very thorough report. Like we use both consumer surveys, and we also use company data from e-commerce companies in Sweden. So over 200 companies and lots of consumer surveys that we do quarterly. So basically, the difference in our report is that we have the whole picture, like both the consumer and the companies. That's one thing. The other thing, when it comes to consumer behavior, what we've seen the last 2 years is that, firstly, we've seen an older group going in, like plus 55, 60 years old, that start buying doing their groceries and buying pharmaceutical products and things like that online. And that, of course, is an effect of the pandemic that has just, done that these changes just was much quicker than we would have expected. This change could have maybe have happened on 5 or 10 years, but it happened in 2 years now, So basically, yes, consumer behavior, an older group that is going on doing their shopping online, and also much higher expectations from the customer when it comes to quicker deliveries, particularly in big cities like Stockholm, much quicker deliveries, and having the freedom to choose how you want to get your parcel. So basically, that has changed a lot. Historically, Sweden has been kind of different market in comparison to other countries. Here in Sweden, it's called PUDOs, or the service points. It's the most common alternative. That is, when you do your groceries, you pick up your parcels in the place where you buy your food. That's the most common way of getting your parcel, your delivery. But nowadays, we see that there's a lot of disruptors, a lot of new companies coming in the market since the last year, not only in the pandemic, but a bit before. And they starting pushing the new ways of delivering products. That is home deliveries and parcel lockers. And these companies, if I would compare it to our company, to PostNord, these companies are very different in the sense that, firstly, they don't have this historical heritage of being a large company with a lot of different systems and things like that. Most of these companies are startups that are they thought first on all the technical stuff they needed, and then they started basing their product or service on that. So they started the other way around. Whereas for us, like making changes in the systems in order to for instance, showing the real time, how your parcel is coming real time, it's a huge change for the whole company's change all the systems. So in that sense, they have an advantage. They have started with the technical stuff first, and then they've developed their deliveries. So, but they are still very small, these companies, but they are pushing up their expectations from the customers.
What does that imply for PostNord? I mean, there seems to be also a huge need on upskilling and reskilling in order to respond to these developments. Not only with regard to data science and stuff like that, but also understanding how the market is working today, how you create business, what kind of business models are needed. Can you explain a bit what you're doing on your own for your own upskilling, reskilling, and maybe also have some insights about what initiatives are going on in the company in order to prepare people for this ongoing shift?
Yes, actually, is something that is a hot topic when it comes to training and what should we focus on. There's a trainee program, for instance, nowadays in the company that they want to attract new talents. So they are, people that are in the last year of their studies and trying to get them, into the company so that they start parallel with their studies, they start training. That's, I think, is a good initiative. But apart from that, we have usually courses or opportunities to attend on courses. But I would say that maybe we or the company should start thinking of more a structural way of because the thing is that it's so many things going on all the time when it comes to AI and things like that, and it's difficult to know exactly what we should focus on. And I think that this is a challenge that many companies have, not only PostNord, but all these companies have. What I think is positive is that there's many initiatives, not from PostNord in particular, but in Sweden in general. Like, for instance, Microsoft has an initiative where they really want to train as many people as possible. So they have like free courses on AI, free courses on things like that. So there's many initiatives in Sweden because we see the lack of competence, the lack of particularly when it comes to those technological things. But another aspect I would say is that I don't know how a company would be able to tackle is the new kinds of ways in which we need to start working, because a company that because as things are going on so fast, changing so fast, you need to also adapt in the way you work. You know what I mean? Like, you need to be more agile in the way you work. And I see that as there's still a challenge for many companies, particularly large companies, in which you already have processes for the way you take, for instance, you develop a new product, but because of things externally change so fast, then you need to have this in like even shorter periods of time or shorter projects, or try a product, you know what I mean? Like, being more agile. I think that is a huge challenge for large companies. How do you find a way of combining both, having certain processes that are more established, at the same time being flexible enough to be not reactive but proactive in what's happening on the market?
How are you trying to do that on your own?
Actually, it's part of my job because in Swedish, my title is omvärldsanalytiker, and means an analyst of the external, what's happening on the market, the external world, kind of. That's the translation. So it is in my role, like, to follow up every day what's going on in the market. And part of my role as well is both sharing this new information with my colleagues internally, but also being a thought leader, because that's what we really want to be in the market with, for instance, E-barometern, like showing the market we know e-commerce, we actually know what we are doing. So in my case, it's part of my job being updated all the time, like reading what's going on, looking at what happens with our.
But how do you do it? How do you do it? I mean, do you block some time, some space in your calendar every week or month?
Yes.
So that is it like you do it?
Yes, actually, I block sometimes for like 2 or 3 hours or whatever one day just to read new reports.
Cool.
It's my learning time because it's part of my job. So whenever, and also, the more you say or the more you share, because I'm very active on LinkedIn and I share usually stuff that I learn, and the more I talk about things, the more people reach out to me and give me tips on new things. You know what I mean? Because people start thinking, oh, Soledad is a person that is very curious and she's always reaching out, sharing information. And now some of my colleagues reach out to me and say, have you seen this? Have you seen this event? Have you seen that? And but I try to schedule every week a couple of hours to read new articles or to read on the media. On the media, I read almost every day. Another thing I do is I listen to a lot of podcasts.
It's a good idea, in
Yes.
particular this one.
That's a wonderful idea, listening to podcasts. A lot of people actually include them as tips for training within the companies themselves. I've got another question for you, though. Together with Amazon Sweden, PostNord founded an academy for e-commerce.
Yes.
What are they teaching there, and to whom?
Well, actually, it's a relatively new initiative, a very new project, and I think it's really, really exciting. It's Amazon and many other big companies in Sweden, Business Sweden, Almi, and many other partners. And the idea is to help small companies, e-commerce companies, because generally when you start a company, it's very expensive to, with digital marketing, you need a lot of investments in several things. So the idea with that collaboration is to help small companies grow. Small e-commerce companies in Sweden actually is to give information in different things that a company would need to think about. For instance, logistics, how to optimize your logistics if you're a small company in Sweden. How to think about marketing, how to think about this and that. And then, for instance, expansion as well. There's one partner called Business Sweden, and their focus is helping Swedish companies to expand to other countries. Mm-hmm. So there's many things that we could help with, but the idea there is to help other companies, grow. Small mm-hmm. companies that don't have probably the muscles, as we say in Sweden, the muscles to do big mm-hmm. investments.
How open are logistic companies today in the sense to co-create, to collaborate with maybe even competitors, with companies from other fields? I mean, I have a little bit the feeling that it's quite easy to say we need to become more open and collaborative business models, but in the reality, I don't see that many examples where this collaboration really takes place, because sometimes companies are still afraid of losing intellectual property or competitive advantage. So what is your impression here? How far is PostNord? How far is your specific, I would say, logistic industry in working together, tackling the big challenges of our time?
Yes, that is a very good question. And I would say that, of course, there's always this idea of this protectionist idea of, right. I know this and I don't want to share. So I think it depends a lot on what the objective is, mm-hmm. why you want to cooperate with someone mm-hmm. else or with another company. In this mm-hmm. case, it's a fantastic cooperation. We are trying to help other e-commerce companies that are at the end of the day, they're our customers.
Exactly.
I mean, our customers, yes. But I definitely understand what you mean. What I think is that, as I see it, the only way for companies in the future to be successful is to collaborate with others. Mm-hmm. So, of course, maybe not sharing data with your competitors and things like that, but in certain things, the mm-hmm. only way to tackle problems is together. I can give you an example. There's a lot of discussion in Sweden when it comes to, for instance, sustainability. That is a very big question for many, for most of the people, but also for companies. And one thing that is kind of challenging when it comes to deliveries and things like that is how consumers can make the right choices when they come to the checkout, because there are so many alternatives to choose from, and how do I know which is the most, the best one for the most eco-friendly or, alternative. So now there's a project in Sweden going on that the Swedish Trade Organization, it's an initiative from the Swedish Trade Organization. And they have, they have like called together all the 10 largest logistic companies in Sweden and among the 10 largest retailers in Sweden. And what they do is they've created a forum where they have been discussing what is sustainability for us, what is sustainability in our sector, what do we mean with fossil free, etc., etc., etc. And they are trying to come to an agreement, a sector agreement on what is fossil free, for instance. So if you in the future, not in the future, your company in the future writes in the checkout fossil free, it is actually agreed on what we mean. You know what I mean? Sure. And that is a fantastic example of the actually, for certain things, you can collaborate, and particularly when it's big issues like sustainability, that is no one person's problem, it's everybody's issue.
Absolutely. You're talking about sustainability, and a very important topic in your industry related to sustainability is this whole idea around the circular economy, where it's also about collaborating and putting the puzzle pieces together in order to utilize resources in a more efficient way. How far are we really here when it comes to the circular economy? What is your impression?
Well, my impression, actually, I am so excited about this topic because I think it's a very interesting topic. So interesting, so important that we actually have included a whole part in our coming report talking about circular economy and what is called C2C. Have you heard about C2C?
Car to car?
No, it's called consumer to consumer. So peer to peer sales. Yes, sure. Basically. Yes. So that is becoming huge, not only in Sweden and other countries as well. I see like eBay and all these platforms that we sell, they sell peer to peer are becoming huge. In Sweden, there we have our Swedish actors that actually do more or less the same thing, Tradera, Blocket, many companies. And so we think it's very interesting, and we are doing research on that. But what we see is that when it comes to circular economy, there are many, many good initiatives. For instance, these platforms where people can sell their second-hand stuff, so they can give the product a longer life. Or yes, but and we also see B2C, business to customers. I mean, normal retailers that also start doing. How can I say? They start creating platforms where they sell second-hand. I don't know if you've heard of like IKEA, they have a circular platform. Yes, I think it's great. It's fantastic. But what I see is also that there's still a problem for them for those companies to make a profit from this, because if you compare to having like the normal production line where you already have optimized most of the stages. And also you've calculated the pricing and everything based on your process of production is one thing. And you have to mark all the products, with a certain number and stuff like that. But to do the same thing with a second-hand product is very complex. And you also need to check that the product is good enough and, quality of the product. And if it is an electronics product, for instance, if it actually works and things like that. So the complexity of the circular market is much more, and the costs, maybe it's difficult to find the balance between making a profit from that. You know what I mean? So for many companies, as I see it right now, it's very good that they are investing on it because it may give a profit in the long run, but I would say that it's more of a brand thing as nowadays. You know what I mean? Like they are working on this because it's good for the brand. But they will probably come there. I mean, to that point where it is also profitable. Hopefully. Yeah.
We have a lot of topics that people are always dancing into. One of those topics is virtual reality and augmented reality. How do you see from your report how 3D is the e-commerce market going to be in the future?
Oh, that's very exciting. I would say that we are not there yet. There's many companies that are testing, they're trying to use like avatars and a bit of gaming. So it's not still mainstream. We are far from there. I mean, it's just some kind of disruptors trying this stuff, but I think it's very exciting development. I have a colleague that usually, he goes to many like events in different parts of the world, and he was in a very large event in the US, a retail event. And the topic there was basically metaverse. And, you know, they talk a lot about metaverse and what's coming in the future of internet and things like that. And I think it's extremely exciting because I like following trends. But I think that we still have a lot to do in here and now, like in the, like optimizing our logistic processes, delivering on what we promise, like that people don't need to wait so many days. You know, on average, a consumer waits like 3.2 days in Sweden for a parcel, and they expect to get their parcel actually on like 2 days, 2.3 days. So there's still things to be done there. That's what I mean. But exciting on like following the trends on that. It is still not scalable, I would say, and not profitable for companies working on AR and stuff like that. But it's on a very exciting, future, I would say. Another thing that I think is a big trend, and in Sweden is becoming more popular. I don't know if you've heard about live shopping or live streaming. Yes, absolutely. I think that is a good way of getting close to the customer when you have a digital, when you have an online business. So because of the pandemic as well, this became huge. There's a very well-known company in Sweden called Bambuser. They actually are originally they were a live streaming company for news. You know, when different reporters go all around the world and film and stuff like that, live. So they were like the technical solution for those kind of live streamings. What happened later on? Yeah, they saw this coming from China, from many Asian countries, this big trend of showing products live, you know, with a video. So they got the idea this will be the thing in the future. So they started producing, they actually a product that is a live shopping for live streaming for shopping online. And the thing was that it was kind of perfect. It came when the pandemic came, and we couldn't go in the physical stores. So people would like even call customer service and stuff like that, or they wanted to see the product, you know, on a screen. So many companies trying the live shopping phenomena, and with huge, fantastic results. And I would say that there's different ways of using live shopping, but in particular two. The one would be more like using it with influencers, where people that have a lot of followers on social media and things like that. And another would be like using it to show a product and using the salesperson in your company, for instance, showing the product and explaining how to use the product, for instance. And there's a very good example in Sweden, a company called Shello Company. They sell electronics and things like that. And they are the best company on that. They actually have done, I think now there's over 300 live streaming shows. So they are called live streaming shows. And what the company does is that they say, okay, this day at this time, we're going to show our latest products. I don't know. And then you can go in this live and you see the person presenting. And you can chat and ask questions. You can, look at, there's links to see the stuff, the product on the site, and you can order directly, add to cart directly. So there's so much so many features that you can use. And what it does is you get explain the explanations and live questions. You can ask questions live and get input from the person that's talking about the product. And you also have this quick response. If you really like the product, then you add it to the cart as well. So it also helps the company with conversion. That is, that they actually go to, that people do buy the stuff. So, but this company in particular has been very good at using this to promote, like to teach the consumer to explain the product, how you use it and stuff like that live. So basically, what you would do when you go to shopping and when you go to a shop and you don't know how to use a product, you would ask a person, or you would take a number and wait until someone can help you. And here you can do it live,
Soledad, time flies. We are coming to the end of our podcast of today, and at the very end, I have a concluding question, and maybe you can try to respond as quick as possible or as short as possible. So, talking about the future for yourself, for the society, for the economy, what are topics, or what is the topic which has the highest priority for you in the next time?
Personally, I want to share as much as information as I get in my job, both in the company but in general, so people get to understand the complexity of e-commerce and also the challenges. As I said, what is sustainable? What are alternatives? So I think it's very important with educating the customer is really, really important. And in general, I would say that sustainability is definitely a very big topic for all the companies in the future and nowadays as well. But that is what I see as sustainability, definitely.
Great.
Yeah.
Super. Very quick question from me, just in bullet points.
Yes.
If you're going to give advice to people, 3 things that they should learn for the future to be good in e-commerce.
To be good, to understand e-commerce or to work with e-commerce?
Whichever you like.
Okay. Oh my God. If a person would like start working with e-commerce, I would say that they need to have huge curiosity for individuals. For people, firstly, understand people, understand the customer, understand behavior. You need to be curious about that. You need to be open, because, as I said, changes go very, very, very fast. So if you are a person that that there's this growth mindset and fixed mindset. If you have a fixed mindset, you probably will not be good at this, because as things are changing so fast, then you need to be open for other opportunities, other possibilities of seeing things, and then just do it. Like if you're interested in learning, then just reach out to people and say, or do a course or whatever you find your way to learn. So just do it.
Just do it, or come into our podcast, into the Digitalisation podcast, like you have done it.
Yes.
Yeah. Dear Soledad, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you about your experience, about e-commerce, about circular economy, and many others. So thanks for joining.
Thank you. Have a great day.
And Soledad, thank you from me too. That was the conversation today, from Argentina to Sweden, with the lady who swims with the turtles and walks for miles because she's curious, in the company where feedback is always welcome. That was our conversation today with Soledad Gonzalez, e-commerce PostNord Sweden and project manager for the E-barometern. And if you, dear listeners, have a suggestion for a guest for us who's just as interesting as Soledad is with her 5 languages, then please send us an email at podcast@i40.de. And you can follow what's happening in the podcast if you use our hashtag DigiCompetenzPodcast. And those of you that's heard us before know that Philip and I love doing somersaults when you're with us the next time, when it's called Being Digitally Competent with Philip Ramin and Anne Coark.